What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? This is going to be your retro review for TheWire Season 1, Episode 6. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I hope you like this video. So, we start this episode off. We start off with the dead body of Omar's boyfriend. Baby, they did a job on this body, and then they left the body laid out on an abandoned car in the alley, basically as a lesson, as a warning to the whole neighborhood. Don't rob Avon Barksdale. Then the camera pans up to, you see the extension cord running from some other electricity running all the way across into an abandoned building. And what we find out is we see Wallace and I don't know why I can't ever remember the other boy's name, but they are living in an abandoned building and they got a bunch of kids. And at first I thought, oh, these are like maybe their little brothers or sisters or whatever. But what you see is that I feel like the impression I got was that these were a lot of like kids who have been abandoned by their parents or whatever, because he said something about foster care, and you can clearly see that these kids are probably not siblings, and it had to be about 8 of them. I don't know. He gets up, he's brushing his teeth, and you see that he's responsible for the whole house. He's getting the kids up, he's brushing his teeth, and he's got like one of them little refrigerators, and honey, all they got is the little, remember the little Caprice, the boxes, the sips, and used to come in the boxes before the pouches, and a bag of chips, and that's their lunch. And it is so sad to see this. On one hand, it's admirable to see that they're taking it upon themselves to be taking care of the kids, but it's sad to see that that's what it's come to. For whatever reason, none of these kids have parents. You see them sneaking out the house, and he even, he kept mentioning about, them being truant, like you got to get up and go to school. You start missing school, then they're going to be sniffing around. The truancy people going to be sniffing around, and they're going to figure out what's up, and then you're going to be in foster care. Like, y'all need to go to school. One little boy didn't have his book bag. He was like, where your book bag at? Like, he's really being daddy. And you see a different side of the whole drug game. Like, these kids are hustling because they don't have no options. Like, school these are orphans, and they doing the best thing they know how to do, the best way they know how to do it. And once they get the kids off to school, they go. Now the police in the neighborhood, there's a whole bunch of police activity. They go to see what it is. They see the dead body, and of course they immediately know that that's the same guy that they had called DAngelo about. And we see that it affects young Michael B. Jordan. And later on, we see him talking to DAngelo, and he's telling DAngelo how, that whole situation sort of messed him up a little bit. And DAngelo was like, but you had to know what you were doing. Like, you knew when you called, you knew what was up. Like, he said, you're going to have to let that go. And he was like, man, I just keep seeing that body laying there. Like, it's just bothering me. And DAngelo was like, listen, you're going to have to let it go. And he said, but remember when you were telling us it ain't have to be like that? Remember when you were telling us it? Then he was like, yeah, I remember what I said, but I also know what it is. So we'll get back to that whole thing. Downtown, we see Rawls, we see McNulty, and we see the police chief. McNulty goes in there with all these, like, look, these are the murders, we connecting it, like, I've been working, and basically they have the conversation where, Rawls tells McNulty, listen, you coming back over here, the next time you rotate tonights, you're rotating over here. And McNulty is trying to tell him, like, he really doesn't want to come back, but he also understands that his boss went out on a limb to get him out of the doghouse and for him to bring his ass back. McNulty is like, listen, he's trying to talk, but he ain't really saying a whole lot because his boss, his lieutenant, is giving him the side eye, like, don't you say nothing. You just nod and agree. Don't you say nothing. Later on, we see DAngelo. DAngelo is primping and propping like he is going on a date. Like, I kept waiting. He changed his outfits 4 or 5 times. He popping tags off and stuff. He got 20 different pair of Timberlands. I'm like, where is he going? I thought maybe he was getting ready to go on a date, another date. No, he getting ready to go to work on the corner, sitting on a dirty orange couch all day. Okay, we see that he ended up spending the night with the stripper, the dancer from the club, and she playing her position. She letting him know, listen, I don't want, she cooking breakfast, but she like, look, I don't want nothing from you. I know it is what it is. And he was, she sees the picture of the girlfriend, and she was like, of his son. And she's like, basically asking, is she still around? What's up? And he was like, yeah, she around. She want it all. Basically, she want to live that drug dealer girlfriend life is what he telling her. She want the nice bags and the nice clothes and the money, credit cards and all of that. And she was like, that's what every woman's dream is. And she was like, not every woman. And then he said something about when her cooking breakfast, and she was like, yeah, my mom always told me, a woman cook you breakfast, she'll be trying to get a key. And she was like, I don't want no key. Like, she's letting him know, listen, I'm not that chick. Like, what we did is what we did. I know what it is. I'm playing my position. So then he makes this real callous comment about women, about pussy not being free. And that's what did it for her. Like, she was cool with understanding he had a girlfriend. She was even cool with knowing that they wasn't gonna be no couple, that it was what it is. But then him making that comment about pussy not being free kind of threw her. She was like, yeah, I gotta go. DAngelo, he knows he said something wrong, but I don't know if he figured out what he said wrong. Back down into the boiler room, they now have the wiretap on the payphones. However, they are restricted to listening to calls unless they know for sure that the person on the phone is one of their suspects, because it's a public phone. You can't just be listening. Well, we know they do, but but you can't just be listening. Big Brother can't just be listening to everybody phone call on the public phone. So he's explaining. So Freeman is explaining to them, listen, it is more important than ever that we are on those rooftops, because whenever that phone rings, we need to make that connection to the phone ringing. Who's on the phone? We need to, keep up with the time. Like, we got to have a whole relay going. When the phone rings, we see who pick up the phone. We need to call, say, listen, you can listen on this call because it's one of our suspects. Write it down, log it in. And Hurt is complaining, man, we're going to be on those rooftops forever. This is ridiculous. Da, 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 da. And Freeman tells him, Freeman said, what the fuck did you think you signed up for? Like, this is the job. This is work. This is police work. It's tedious. It's long. Sometimes it takes forever. Like, get it together. Chill out. McNulty is complaining to Bunk about the fact that he really ain't ready to come back. They stuff is just getting popping with the Avon Barksdale case, and Bunk is like, what you gonna do? Like, Daddy said, come home, nigga. You gotta bring your butt home. You know what I'm saying? So, McNulty gets called down to the crime scene of Omar's boyfriend. They realize it's him. McNulty is like, wow, that's crazy. He was like, I need to get in touch with Omar before, one, I need to get in touch with Omar before he finds out and he just goes on a rampage. Two, we need to figure out a way that we can flip it, work with Avon and flip this to our advantage. So he leaves his calling card for Avon. Then they give us this thing about how horrible Baltimore public service is. They would talk about the fact that the crime lab, that body had been laying out there for an hour. They had been waiting on the crime lab because the crime lab was too busy at the council member's house because somebody stole his patio furniture. Like, crazy. Sorry. We're back down to the high rises. The low rises, and that's where they're starting to follow some of these calls. They see DAngelo pick up the phone. They're on the roof to relay it, so they know that they can. So that's a phone call that they can tape. And what they hear on the phone call is DAngelo messes up and uses Stickham's name, but basically Stringer Bell. They're talking in code, so nobody really understands fully what they're saying, but they are talking in code. But they basically letting him know that the situation was handled, and that, I think they were saying that, you letting him know you still got somebody in your crew that ain't right. Because remember, he had stopped paying them because he was looking for what was in the crew. Who's in the crew that's stealing from them. They really think it's a snitch, but DAngelo finds out that it's somebody stealing. We're going to get there. So they write the information down. They were able to match it. They even though the call was in code, they were still able to get some good information out of the call. And when they hang up the call, Pastrami Sandwich decides that he gonna mark the call as not important. Freeman was like, "What you doing?" He said, "Well, they didn't say nothing. I mean, it was like a 2-second conversation, and nobody said anything." He said, "Listen." He said, "They're using codes for pager numbers. When they answer the phone, they're talking in code. They're not using names. This particular call, DAngelo screwed up and used the name." He said, we're trying to put a puzzle together here. Every piece of the puzzle is important. And so, Pastrami Sandwich, he's learning, right? So we get down to court. Daggone Bodie is at Juvenile Court. Now listen, I know y'all probably sick of me talking about my experience with Juvenile Court, honey, but listen, I never went to court with any of my particular students, but I saw the revolving door, so this court proceeding probably is very realistic to what we saw happen. Bodie we don't even know how old the boy is, but we know he's still a juvenile, has a rap sheet a mile long. But of course, Avon Barksdale's lawyers are on it. They done forged all this stuff, made it look like he enrolled in GED classes and he's doing all these wonderful things. And yes, he's done horrible things in the past, but he's getting his life together. And the judge was like, okay, but he assaulted a police officer. They flipped that and said, no, the police officers were actually assaulting him. Look, he still has marks on his face now from the beating. He was just defending himself. Okay, well, how did he get out? He walked away from a juvenile detention facility. Oh, well, he was so delusional from his injuries. He didn't know what he was doing. He was just trying to get home to his grandmother. And of course, they got grandma sitting in the courtroom. And I'm like, I know they paid her to be there because she was so over him. The judge says, okay, well, we're going to give you home detention. You're going to come back to court, but we're going to put you on house arrest. The lawyer says, Your Honor, they don't have a home phone number for him to check in. So the judge is like, okay, fine. He could just check in with his parole officer once a month till he comes back to court. I said, okay, see, that is how. And so when people say, what's the criminal justice system and how these kids, that's how. When I worked, I know y'all sick of it, but when I worked in the detention center, I worked in the detention center for a couple of years. And when I tell you I saw the same kids over and over again, I mean, to the point where they would come back, they'd be like, hey, and I'd be like, hey. And I mean, I had a good relationship with them, but I mean, every time they came back, I hated to see them coming back because I'm like, what the heck? But when you get the stories, honey, anyway, moving on. Bubs done found himself a little gig, honey. He working at somebody's fruit stand. And, of course, his friend done got out of jail, and, honey, he is ready to get paid. They done hooked up with some third party, and they done come up with a caper where they can still to steal some copper pipes, because they can sell it to the construction sites for cheaper than what they had to buy it legit. And then, of course, they take the money and they go get high. So they done ran this whole caper where the boy jumped in front of the car, and of course his leg is already still messed up, and they stealing the copper off the back of the car while the guy's in the front of the car. And then the guy lifted up his shirt and saw the lesions, and then of course he jumped back and got scared or whatever. But it worked. They ended up getting the copper, honey. They ended up selling the copper, honey, and getting high as a kite. All three of them got high as a kite. Old boy decided to go back out and get another round of drugs. Bubs was in the house waiting for them to get the drugs. All of a sudden he hear the police. He look out the window. White boy getting arrested. Bubs is like, dang, he don't have no luck. I was like, yeah, he doesn't. That boy got more bad luck than the child. So they on the rooftop, and who's back in town? Bodie. And of course, it's Herc that sees him. And Herc is like, you will not believe who I see sitting on the damn roof. I mean, Bodie comes back, and ain't nobody out there. They not selling nothing. Shop is shut down. So, of course, he's like, where's everybody? He ends up calling Stringer Bell, of course, on the payphone. And they got the whole call. And Stringer tells him, don't worry about it. We shut down for the day. Come back tomorrow. You know, he like, oh, all right, you know. I just want to make sure everything was everything. Because, of course, he was like, well, what the hell's going on here? So, Hurt calls up his partner in crime, Carver. He said, you will not believe who I just saw. So they think Bodie done escaped from the damn facility again. They rolled up on him. They jacked him up, got him all on the ground or whatever. Bodie was like, look at my back pocket. He was like, I didn't escape from nowhere. Look at my back pocket. Bodie gonna say, I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and be honest with y'all. Because they be like, damn, they done let your ass out. He say, listen, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Baltimore City juvenile system is fucked up. And they're like, yeah, it is. So they end up actually giving him a ride home. Again, I told you, they're building this relationship with this boy. And they don't even realize they're doing it, but they are. So they end up giving him a ride home, honey. He said, we can make it even if you just give me a ride to my grandmother's house. So Rawls is on his way home, and he actually sits down and starts going through the file that McNulty done put together. And he realized, wait a minute. I can clear about 3 cases right now. So the next day, he tells the lieutenant, tell McNulty to get arrest warrants and go ahead and arrest DAngelo Barksdale and let's end this. And he knows he can clear 3 cases in the process. So of course we're gonna get back to that. But of course that pisses off McNulty, but we get back to that. In the meantime, DAngelo done figured out who's stealing from him. And the way he figured it out was, again, remember, Stringer Bell got a plan for everything and everything makes sense. Stringer Bell told him to stop paying so he could see who ain't really strapped for cash. Because if you don't get paid, but you've been skimming off the top, you're going to find a way to make money. And Cassie, the girl that's running for him, he realized that he ran up on her. She coming out the store with a bag full of groceries. He was like, you seem to have a whole lot of money for somebody that ain't got paid in a couple of weeks. Like, what's good? So he realized that she was the one stealing. But DAngelo also realizes that if he goes back and tells Stringer Bell that who was stealing from him, he also knows that that's going to end up, they're going to end up, dead or an example made of them, what have you. And so what he ends up doing though is he just flips the teams around and he takes them off of being able to handle the money and handle the actual drugs. All they doing is running. They not in charge of nothing anymore. And so, young Michael B. Jordan asked him about it. He was like, why you pull Casey and them off? And, DAngelo told him, he said, because she was stealing. He was like, and you ain't snitch, you ain't say nothing. He was like, and if I had, what would have happened, right? DAngelo. Michael B. Jordan was like, yeah, I know. He was like, all right then. So, I don't even need all that drama. He was like, I just moved everything around. Took them off of anything so they can't mess it up. And it is what it is. He was like, if I had called my uncle, you already know how that would have went down. So Michael B. Jordan is peeping and understanding that DAngelo he's thinking smarter than just that street justice stuff. And that may or may not come back and bite him in the butt. Okay. So oh boy, what's his name? Polk. I think it was Polk, the one of the 2 guys that used to come in drunk. Remember, his partner was the one that Bodie hit, and so he retired. And he keep telling him, man, go ahead and get your retirement in. So he shows up for work drunk as hell. I mean, I don't even know how he got to work. He was so drunk. Daniels calls him in the office, and Daniels tells him, look, he said, listen, everybody around here have been covering for you, but I'm not. And I'm not going to keep, you got sent to me because your lieutenant didn't want to deal with you no more. I'm not going to keep moving you around. Either you're going to do your job or you're going to get up out of here. He said, so you got 2 choices. You can either go up on that rooftop and do your rotation like everybody else, or you can go down to medical and get dried out. You can go into rehab. You make the decision. Old boy said, good luck with the case. I'm going to rehab. I said, you know what? I mean, but he gave him a choice. He told him what he had to do, honey. So, meantime, Lieutenant done told Bump, get in touch with your boy and tell him he need to get those arrest warrants in. They get that phone call from Bump. So immediately, it was Kima, it was Freeman, it was McNulty. They immediately go run out to meet up with Bump. And they're like discussing what the dealio is, right? And of course, McNulty has no confidence in Daniels. He was like, listen, Daniels ain't gonna, he's not gonna buck. And Kima, because Daniels was her lieutenant before all of this, she was like, Daniels will fight for us. And McNulty was like, no, he won't. He was like, this is gonna ruin our case. If we show our hand, he said, we don't have enough evidence to convict a squirrel. And if we show our hand, all Avon is gonna do is switch everything up, and we right back where we started, and we still not gonna get a conviction out of it. He was like, we need to get somebody that can talk Rawls off the ledge. And Bunk was like, well, y'all need to figure it out, because basically he told me to get these arrest warrants out within the next, basically today. So y'all need to get something together. So Kima makes a good point. Kima was like, listen, we need to go to Daniels. We need to give Daniels an opportunity to fight. And if he not going to fight, then he wasn't going to fight for us anyway. Then he never believed in this case anyway. But we at least need to give him that chance, because at the end of the day, I believe he's a good dude. I believe he's going to do it. Meantime, Daniels is back. They back in the boiler room. And Pastrami Sandwich is telling him, look, the paperwork is piling up. Can we get a couple of file cabinets up in here? And Daniels actually smiles, because in his mind, I'm thinking, he's like, well, I'm gonna make a cop out of him yet. Because remember, he ain't had no time for Pastrami Sandwich. None whatsoever, child. So they take it back to Daniels. And Daniels does exactly what McNulty said he was going to do. Daniels was like, listen, Rawls outranks me. Like, I don't know what you want me to do, but he outranks me. I can't do anything. And they were like, see, I knew he wasn't going to do nothing. And of course, McNulty is McNulty. He throws a fit and, throws a tantrum, and he rolls up out of there. But Daniels does actually go and fight for the case. He actually does go toe to toe with Rawls, and with the big dude, the big guy. Oh Lord, what's his name? Not Rawls. But anyway, the big guy, the guy that's over Rawls. And they go back and forth, but Daniel's actually convinced. Daniel says, listen, at the end of the day, he's just trying to clear his cases out. That's all. Well, first Daniels went to Rawls first one-on-one. And Rawls was like, yeah, I appreciate you coming to me. That's all well and good. But, yeah, that's going to be a hard no, bruh. I'm going to go ahead and get these arrest warrants, and I'm going to go ahead and arrest my people and clear my cases. So that's when they ended up going to the guy that's over Rawls' head. And they have a good conversation back and forth. Like, they go back and forth with it. And at the end of the day, Daniels brings up a good point. Daniel says, listen, if his case is as strong as it is, it'll still be that strong in a month. But and we don't lose anything. If we wait a month, we don't lose anything. But if we go now and we don't have the evidence we think we have, and DAngelo ends up walking, we lose everything. So Rawls is convinced, and Rawls gives them another month. But that's gonna cost Daniels, because baby, now he is on Rawls. He's on the other dude. He's on his bad side. Real bad. Now in the meantime, down in the low rises, Avon Barksdale makes an appearance. Stringer Bell, Avon Barksdale, Weebay, and Stickum. All of them together, honey. Avon came down to personally pay Michael B. Jordan, give him his money, because remember he said it was $1,000, so he gave him $500. He gave DAngelo $500. For helping them relay or whatever. And in the meantime, the dude, the white guy, that's the snitch for the major. He wasn't even paying attention. He was on the other side of the daggone roof taking a leak. So he missed the whole thing. So there are no pictures. There's no evidence. There's no nothing of Avon Barksdale, DAngelo together, shaking hands and doing all of that. Like nothing. I said, now that was a waste of daggone time. They don't have nothing to show for it. Meanwhile, they finally catch up with Omar calls McNulty. And he says, I want to see the body. McNulty with his kids, honey. McNulty ends up taking his kids with Omar, picking Omar up and going down to the morgue. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said his ex-wife is gonna have a good old fit. But anyway, so they go down to the morgue. Omar, oh my God, he let out a scream that they could hear on the other side of the street. And he's like, oh, I'm gonna get him. And McNulty convinces him, listen, work with us. Like, I know you want revenge, but at the end of the day, work with us to try to get him, you know, get him off the street for good. Take his whole organization down. So they go back to the boiler room. They got Omar in the boiler room. Omar was like, what the fuck? But he ends up talking to him. And Omar's giving them some good information. The problem is it's all hearsay. It's no, you know, Kima was like, we need evidence to go with this. Like, this is all well and good that you're giving us the connection, but we need to be able to corroborate all of this. So Omar starts talking about that last night that you know, he saw his boyfriend and everything. He told him where the boyfriend went. He went down to the Greek place to play some video games. He said, I didn't want him to go by himself. He was like, but you know, you can't hover for too long. So they were like, well, what time? So they start putting the pieces together, and then Freeman pulls the log from that night with the phone calls on the pager. And they going by the time, they were like, okay, this phone call, this time, and this time this happened, and this time that happened, and this time that happened. And they were able to connect all of the dots. And they were like, this is the murder right here. This is the murder happening right here. And they end up going down to the Greek restaurant to verify the phone number. They talked to the Greek guy. He remembered seeing them. And he told them they took him away in handcuffs. He thought it was the police because, you know, that's what you would think. You see somebody being taken away in handcuffs, you think it's the police. So they think it's the police. They verified the phone number at the payphone was that phone number in the relay of that night. So they're like, okay, we getting closer. And Omar even said that he would testify. And Kima was like, you sure you're not scared of Avon? You know, Omar was like, Omar not scared of nobody. I love when he talks in third person, honey. Omar not scared of nothing. So they got him. They got him on it. Now the reality of the situation is Omar claimed he saw the murder when DAngelo shot the guy in the head. He ain't seen no damn murder. Not only that, but I don't even know if they can try DAngelo for that murder because it was the same double jeopardy is attached at this point. He was found not guilty, I'm pretty certain. But anyway, so excuse me. So they do all of that and they're able to connect all of those dots and stuff. So Daniels comes back and lets them know that they have another month to work. He tells them they got another month to work. And Freeman even looks at him. Freeman said, what did that cost you? Daniels was like, we don't even want to discuss that. Because he know it's about to cost him. And Freeman know how that game is played too. And of course McNulty was like, thanks for putting your ass on the line for us, basically. So that was pretty much the episode, you guys. Again, we're getting closer. We're starting to see more and more pieces of the puzzle, more and more breadcrumbs dropping. But that's pretty much what this episode was. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Drop it in those comments. Peace.